Hey everyone, this is Laravel DFW for February 2016, and we're excited because it's the new year. Last month we did an in-person meetup. We do our alternations, but we're really excited for this month. So we're going to be talking about Lumen and some APIs. I think it's going to be really fun. I have a couple of things to get through before then, so just sit tight 1 second. Trying to get Keynote up here. Oh, I have too many Chrome windows. And screen share. We'll get it eventually. All right. Whoa. So the first thing is Squares. So we've been talking with Ish and his team for a little while now about Squares. It's coming up soon in April. It's April 27th through the 29th in Grapevine, Texas. Speakers like Nathan Smith, Jen Lucas, Val Head, Phil Kaufman. It's going to be really great. And we actually have a special deal. You can get 15% off if you use the code Squares2016 during your checkout. I know the team at MusicBed is going. That's what I do day to day. So a lot of my engineers are going. It's going to be a really great time. You can register at squaresconference.com and remember to use the 15% off code, just 20 Squares 2016. One other thing, if you have a question at all during this broadcast, just go to laraveldfw.com/ask. If you just go to laraveldfw.com, there's a little button that you can click to, but that's the quick way to get to it. There's going to be a couple other announcements later. We have some great, cool stuff we've been working on for a while. But without further ado, let me introduce our speaker and who else is on the call really quick. So this month, Oz Brignoni is going to be talking about Lumen and APIs. It's going to be great. So why don't we head over there really quick. So Oz, how are you doing today?
Doing great. How are you guys?
Pretty good. We have Seth. Seth, are you doing well today?
Doing fantastic.
Nice. Stuart?
Absolutely wonderful.
Awesome. Well, that's awesome. I guess let's go ahead and get started. I just realized that my screen share might not have been working. So if you missed the slides, maybe we'll show them at the end if I can get Chrome just to start working. So
I saw them.
really, that's weird because I came back and it was, I don't know, it still shows my face. Oh well, we'll get started here. So Oz, why don't you take us away, man? I know you've been talking about Lumen for a while, working on some great apps. So yeah,
Sure.
let's get it started.
Let's get started. Let me share my screen.
So why don't you tell us a little about yourself first?
Yeah, so I'm a backend engineer at MusicBed. I work with Tanner, and in a couple of months there, it's been awesome. It's a great team, and every day is just a learning experience from everybody and every challenge. And recently, I've been playing with Lumen for a side project, and we never have talked about Lumen before, so I thought it was a great topic. And I'm just gonna cover the basics, just a little bit of the setup and some things I learned recently because really I only used it for maybe 2 months, and this is gonna be a little bit improvised, so I hope it doesn't go too bad, but I'm just gonna I don't have like a set of things written down, so I'm just gonna go. It's more of like a walkthrough. So here's the Lumen site, and immediately you can see the simplicity of it. It shows you the basic routing and dispatching jobs, and it has great documentation. One of the first things to note is that version 5.2, it's heading towards being a framework where you build stateless APIs, which means they've removed sessions and views. And so I started a little app that's just your typical simple task and checklist application. It's just like I did it a few hours ago. It's like super basic. Just and this is the folder structure. You're gonna notice there's a lot missing because one of the biggest goals of Lumen is to be lighter, because you're just gonna build API. So it's less packages included, and it has no config folder. You do everything from service providers, and basically you get started. If you install the Lumen command line tool, you can do Lumen new project, project name, whatever. So that's how I created. And then you do a composer install as you would in the same as Laravel. In this case, I just included one extra package called Fractal, which helps you to structure data really nicely. And this is their site. This is one of the packages from the PHP League. It has really nice documentation, and you can see some examples. And basically, it helps you structure not only the data, but how resources relate to each other, and how you load them, and how you render the pagination with all that data. So
George R. Satan. Nice.
Yeah, so here I have on my local environment is running on Homestead, and I have this host as tasks.dev, and you can see I'm returning a list of tasks, and you can see here it's prefixed with the API version number, and that's just a convention that you might follow or not. You very well may do that and do any of your resources, from the root. But you gotta strategically think ahead of, what devices are gonna connect to this API. If it's gonna be a mobile app, you probably will release different versions of it, and you wanna have some backwards compatibility. So when you release the new app, you maybe serve it version 2 of your API, while all old versions of the application are still making requests to the version 1.0. So this is very, very easy to set up from your routes. And basically, you do a group, and you prefix it with whatever version, and then you set the namespace. In this case, I'm using V1, and it's in here within the app folder HTTP controllers V1, and I have my task controller there. So this prefixes all of the routes that are enclosed within this closure. So here's the task route, and it maps to the task controller index here. And here's my index, and I'm injecting the task model directly into the construct. You might want to do a different pattern, which is you bind the interface to a repository, and then you inject the model to that, and then you actually use an interface over here, like that, instead of using the model directly. But I'm just going to keep it simple for now. We're going to use the model, and as you all know, Eloquent has this convenient paginate method, and I'm just saying, okay, give me 10 records per page. It automatically gets the the current page from the request, whether it's page 1, page 2, page 3, and so on. And what I've done here in the collection method, I've done a little bit of setup from the base controller with Fractal. I'm going to show you the base controller. So I have two methods that I'm going to constantly use across all my controllers, which is item, which I use to return just one record, or collection when I want to return a collection of records. And I'm doing a little bit of setup for the paginator, and this the length aware paginator class is what gets returned whenever you use paginate. You get a paginator. So what I'm doing is, in the base controller, I'm setting up the pagination with Fractal so that it renders it correctly. You can see here, instantiating the collection from Fractal, and I'm setting the paginator, specifically the Illuminate paginator adapter, because this package is framework agnostic. It might be used with other frameworks, and we have this adapter that makes it easy to set up. And we have what's called the Fractal transformers, which is just a class that you define how the data is going to be returned. So for a given task, I can say, out of all of the data, I'm just going to return the first name. Like so. And you might not want to, obviously, you don't want to return the password in the result, because that's something sensitive. So here you can control what's visible in the response. But at the same time, you can just do, like, if you want to do everything except the hidden fields, you can just do toArray. Actually, I should return the array right here. And in the model, actually, this is the task. See, we started with the mistakes. The task you can do in your model, hidden, and then set an array of hidden fields, like so. You can also, so the collection that gets returned from Fractal is serializable. So Laravel is going to know to convert it to JSON, which is really nice. So here you can see the pagination, and it's embedded within the meta key of the response of this JSON structure. By default, the data is enclosed in this data key. And then you have the meta, and within that you have the pagination. This is another thing, a custom thing I did, because in all my Laravel projects, I use a really popular profiler. Do you remember the name, Tanner? Can't remember.
You mean the
where you can see all the query logs and requests?
Are you talking about debug bar?
Debug bar, exactly. So there's nothing like that in Lumen. So basically, I wanted to see the queries in my response just for development, and to see any issues with one-to-one queries and eager loading and that sort of thing. So what I did is, I created just a little service, a query log, and basically uses the Laravel query log, and I format it the way I want it. and I merge in the bindings to the queries. Basically, the same thing that debug bar does, but a little bit custom. And then on my controller, I'm appending the queries to the fractal converted array. So whether it's a collection or an item, it's going to append the queries to it. It's only going to do it if debug is set to true. But actually, I have to do this. It's env to access the environment variables of debug, and I can default it to false. And so I'm checking here that it's enabled to append, so that in production I don't actually append those queries. It's just for development. And in your app service provider, you can do, you do have to resort to the app service provider to do a couple of things, including overriding config. And here we have to set the enable query log because it's disabled by default. I have this here just as an example of how you can add extra connections, because in Laravel you have a database config, and you have like a set of multiple connections. But in Lumen, you only have like one default, because the Lumen assumes that you only have one database. But if for any reason you need to set up more databases, you can do, set the config at runtime, and basically the database config, within that the connections, and you name whatever connection you want, and you set the parameters here, and I'm referencing the same host, the same username and password in a different database, and I can set a different database on my environment file here. So that's something that's not, it's not in, I mean, the documentation does mention you can override config, but it doesn't mention anything about how to handle multiple database connections. So that's a nice trick I had to learn. So what else? Let's try to do a couple of extra controllers, because I have a couple of models here. I have the checklist, the task, and the user. So we already have task. Let's see if we can set up a relationship between the task and the checklist. Let me show you my database structure. Here I have the checklist. I already seeded some data and some task, and we have some task in the task, whether it's complete or not, it's Boolean. The checklist ID, who is it assigned to, and the timestamps. So I think we're going to set up the relationship in the model first. So we're just going to do checklist, because there's just one checklist per task. So this would be a belongs to relationship, and we're going to use the checklist model. So that should be enough. So let's see if we can do some setup in the transformer. We have the task transformer. So you have to set the available includes array and say I want to allow to include the checklist, this result. And let's see, I have to set up eager loading here. So we're going to do with just gonna do this manually. This checklist. You can actually grab whatever includes dynamically from the request, but I'm just gonna do it manually for now. And let's see if we can do this here. It would be includes, I'm not sure if it's singular, let's see, checklist. Oh, yeah, so after you set the available includes, you do have to define the method, I forgot. So let's do that. So I'm gonna define include checklist, and in every method we're gonna receive the task, the actual item, and we are just gonna return an item. This is a fractal item, and we have to define a transformer for the checklist. So let's do that. Going to extend the base transformer, and this just transform. We're going to take in the checklist, and we're just going to return the array of the checklist. Okay, so that's set up. Go back to the task transformer, and we set the transformer here. It's actually the checklist transformer. Oh, you have to instantiate it, I forgot. There it is. Let's see if that works. Oh, so you have to return the checklist. This is the thing with live coding. This is what happens.
It always happens unless your name's Jeffrey Way.
So there it is. Yeah, that guy doesn't miss anything. So for each task we have the checklist. You might not really want to do this. I mean, I think we best visit a resource that is called checklist with the ID, visit the one checklist and return all the tasks for that checklist, right? So let's do that. So I'm going to define the relationship. So it will be multiple tasks per checklist. And I'm going to return has many relationship, set task as the class, and that should be good. And then we're going to define a controller, checklist controller. I'm going to extend the base controller, and let's define this show method and take the ID, which brings up another interesting thing about routing in Lumen that's a little different from Laravel. So routes. So Lumen uses a package called FastRoute for routing, which is very similar to Laravel's routing. It takes almost the same arguments, I think, except the regex for parameters. So in Laravel, you would do where. Well, let's define the actual route that we want. So we want checklist plural, and we want the ID. We want this to be the show route. And in Laravel, you would do something like this, where ID and some regex, the second argument, let's say I only want to take digits, like that. So in fast route, you will have to do it like this. I'm not mistaken. It's within the parameter you're defining. So let's see if this works. So this is going to be actually the checklist.
Let me just quickly remind everyone, if you have any questions, hit up laraveldfw.com/ask, or you can tweet at laraveldfw.
So thanks. So I should be able, if I visit checklist, to see this ID. If I visit a number, see checklist. Should be plural. Okay, should work now. So there we have number one. If I try to visit any
Oh, I think we lost you, Oz.
Yeah, I'm not hearing him.
That's too bad. Well, while we're waiting on Oz to get back, it may just be the connections. We've been having. Did y'all get that water announcement for Fort Worth?
that was funny.
Seeing an internet problem. Oh, there's Oz.
Chrome crashed.
Nice. All right.
Very
Well,
nice.
let's jump back in.
Okay. So back at it. So I was saying, if you try to visit anything that's a digit, like hello, should get a not found because we strictly said we want a digit in there.
You'll need to
if I-
reshare your screen, Oz.
Say again?
You'll need to reshare your screen.
Oh, right. Sorry.
No problem.
I was
Alright.
watching it in the reflection of his eyes. So
That's always good. You can see the code.
All right, so this is
Deepness
what
part.
was happening. I'm gonna put it the way it was. So if I visit that, it's good. It has to restrict it to a digit, but if I do this, we get a not found. And if I remove it, it should allow that word to go through. So that's fast route. That's how it's different from Laravel.
Nice. I was just thinking
So-
it might be a bad idea to live code in the browser that's hosting like the stream. Because you
Yeah.
could get into like an infinite loop or something and it would like crash your browser and crash the stream. Anyways,
Yeah, for sure. Right, so let's inject the checklist model here.
it's a cool filter though for sure.
yeah, I think it definitely increases the readability. I mean, right there in the route definition, you can tell, that param takes this form.
Yeah, I was gonna say it almost looks better than how it is in Laravel. It just
Yeah.
kind of makes sense. It's pretty
It
intuitive.
forces that concept of, it's almost type it like you say it,
Right.
It fits
Yeah.
I like it.
So I'm just gonna return a fractal item, and I'm gonna pass it the whatever checklist I find. I love this eloquent language. It's awesome. It's always been.
For sure.
So that should return a checklist item. because I entered hello. Okay, so number 1, let's see. Item not found. Controllers. So that's something in the setup of the main controller with Fractal. So let's see, we have some item here. Is it? Line 35. Live coding for you. This is Fractal, a class missing in there. That's all. So we must set a transformer. This is just a custom setup I did with Fractal. So basically, I set it so that it's easy for me to set the transformer for a given resource just once on the controller. So on checklist, I just do transformer robots and this guy's checklist. Don't tell me nobody got the reference.
Oh, I did for sure.
I laughed, but my mic was muted.
We LOL'd. But
You all laughed silently.
all our mics are
Can
muted.
I import that? Is this correct?
Seth is ROFLing over there. He turned off the video so we couldn't see him.
Step away a minute.
AFK ROFLing.
You guys talking smack about me?
Oh, so this is wrong. It says transformer singular. There it goes. Live coding. So we should be good now. Transformer working. So we got the first checklist, and we're going to set it up to include the relationship. And I think we are ready with the task relationship. All right. So we don't even have to eager load because we're just loading one record, one checklist, and we're just going to load all the tasks for that checklist. So all we have to do, I believe, is include task. All right, because we didn't set we didn't set up the transformer to include. So we have to do that. This is a nice feature because you control whatever is available for a given resource. And that being able to set your includes gives front-end developers the flexibility to include as much data as they need, but if they don't need it, they just remove that and ask for the resource, and that's it.
Man, that's really nice, for sure.
Yeah. So we're gonna include the task, and we're gonna have to define that method. The task, and it's gonna take the checklist, and we're gonna return a collection. It's a fractal collection. And we're gonna return the task from the collection. And you can see that's the method there if I do that. But what we really want is to call the property magically. And Eloquent will do the job of doing the query and returning the task results for us. So then we instantiate the
Very nice.
task transformer, because this is how we want to structure the data. And this is really nice. The transformers, think about it. You can have multiple transformers for any given model. So you know how you can, in a given model, you can set your hidden parameters. I would recommend, and I started doing this on my project, that you start defining these in the transformer, because this will apply across, if you do it in the model, it will apply across all the app. But if you want to work with different transformers, you can do this over here, let's say, and you can probably set the base transformer to do this for you, but you can actually do this, set hidden, and take them from the transformer. So you can probably set the base transformer to do this for you within the item and collection methods, and you'd have more flexibility to deal with what properties you want to display and wish to hide. So I'm just gonna remove that for now. Keep it simple. So now that we are set up, double check the checklist. Okay, now we should be able to include task. There we go. So we have one checklist and all the tasks for that checklist. And this is, we can start defining the index for checklists. Let's do that. How much time do we have? Where are we?
We're doing pretty good. I mean, probably like 10 or 15 minutes, and then we can take any questions.
Right. So in the index, we're just going to return the paginated result. In this case, checklist, paginate. We're just going to do 10 results. I think we're good. You just have to set the route. Routes PHP and define this. So checklist, and second is an array. It will be the name of the route, and the controller. Just lazy like that. So this would be index. And we should be good to go. We just visit checklist. And it's just given on the first 10 checklists. And I have a JSON formatter in Chrome. So it's formatting the links, and I can click on the page, and it takes me to page 2. And it shows the previous and next. It gives me a lot of stuff for free. This pagination didn't have to do much, which is nice. So I'm going to show you a little bit of maybe how to do the eager loading to load multiple tasks for all these checklists, although it might not be practical. I just want to show you how it works. So in this index, we're going to take and eager load the task. And we're going to include, without removing the pagination, see, it's including the task, and you can see how Fractal helps us to keep sort of like the data almost namespaced, because for each resource you have data. So on this collection you also have data, and you have the collection, and you can possibly include meta information for this collection within here. But it's a nice structure. And then at the bottom we have the pagination, and you can see here, this is why I include the queries, because I can see, hey, this is actually eager loading my results. It's doing a where in query. If I remove the eager loading from here, and I still include it with Fractal, it's going to include it, but the query is going to be slower because it's going to do multiple queries per checklist. So what you can actually do is set up your base controller to handle the includes for both your query and Fractal simultaneously, so that when you actually include your task, it's eager loaded automatically. And I did this for my project, but didn't get to finish it for this example. But probably I can maybe push this example out to a repository and include that code if you guys want to look at it later. So you guys have any questions?
Yeah, so with Fractal, I haven't worked with it a ton, and just seeing a little bit what you're doing, is it mainly used for blacklists and whitelists, kind of in a similar way that mass assignment works? Or what other features does Fractal provide you?
Well, I think the best way to answer that is it just structures data, and you decide what to show in a whitelist fashion, not in a blacklist fashion. And it assumes that you don't want to show anything, and then you decide only what you want to show. But it's infinitely customizable, and all the manager, you can set it up within your application to do whatever you want, and from your base controller, and basically customize everything. But that's basically it. It also has this nice serializer. You can define a class that tells Fractal how to structure the data and meta tags. You can change that. You can change the keys. You can change the entire structure within one class definition, the serializer.
Nice.
So it's just that. And the way you set up how it handles the includes here in the base controller. And let's see, the Fractal setup is here. So this is the method that takes in the includes, parse includes. So I'm just getting the include from Lumen, from the request. This may well be anything you want. Bring, or whatever word you want it to be. So this is why it's responding to include over here. And you can actually load multiple resources by separating by comma. So I can do like users at the same time. And if you want to use dots to include deep nested relationships, Fractal doesn't know how to handle that exactly because it doesn't convert in your transformer. If you have something like, a deep nested relationship like that, it doesn't know how to convert it to this method. It leaves like it would do something like this that's incorrect. So you sort of have to customize it to handle this deep relationships.
Okay. Nice.
So those are some caveats I found when I was developing, but it's easy to customize. Another thing I want to mention is that, right, I've been accessing using GET requests from the browser, but we can't really do post or delete directly here. So I use this REST client called Insomnia, and it's very simple. You can create your request here. Another point I wanted to get at is that you can customize your exception handler easily here with an app exceptions handler. And the main problem with this is it returns an HTML response with that. So it's kind of bad it's unreadable. If you do like,
Right.
you know, whatever route that doesn't exist, it's gonna throw an exception and returns HTML. So if you want, you can customize the response. I'm just gonna return some JSON here as an example. So just by doing that, I get errors formatted. And you can you can probably just log the entire stack trace of all the errors in a JSON format.
Mm-hmm. So if you wanted
in fact,
to provide like a basic 404 message, how would you set that up?
You would, you can probably, because you're receiving the exception here, you can check if the instance of not found, and that way you handle different exceptions in different ways. You can return a JSON response with a specific message if you want. You really have all the you can do whatever you want really here. Just return response. That's the helper JSON. You can do message and whatever you want.
Like, yeah, I guess you just say like.
You can probably just be better if you do like a base format response, a method, you know, where you do all the formatting and then you start checking for the different exceptions and return your response from there. You can do anything, and that's I love that Lumen is it's more of a blank slate than Laravel is. It comes with almost no, well, the framework is a boilerplate, but it doesn't come with any migrations or views, or there's no way to register, like set up registering users. So you kind of have to think about that.
Right.
It assumes that you're going to use API tokens for authorization. And that's in the auth service provider. There's just one default setup, but it's disabled by default. So it's just querying if there's a user with a given API token. But there's no, it's up to you how you want to structure your users database and how you register them and all that. So it's a stateless, there's no session included in Lumen. So it's a different way of thinking about building apps, definitely.
So really quick, if anybody does have questions, again, just send them in laraveldfw.com/ask or tweet at us. Stuart, did you have something?
Yeah, so I guess right there where there's that boilerplate for like API tokenization or like tokens and stuff, are there any more things that are specific to Lumen that Laravel doesn't have that make it particularly better for just JSON APIs other than just having less than Laravel?
That's a good question.
Obviously, here's one example. I'm not sure if there's any other things that are custom features
I
to
did
Lumen.
see something that's called a gate, but I'm not sure if that's something that's also in Laravel, which is authorization. Actually, this what I was talking about with the API token, that's authentication. Authorization is actually the gate class where you can check for permissions. But if you're asking some things that are found in Lumen that Laravel doesn't have, I'm not sure if this is one of them. So really, that's a great question. I personally I'm using it because I know I'm gonna build um, the front end with JavaScript for my app, and I know I want the the entire data to be an API. So I know it's gonna bring down it's gonna speed up the app. Probably, I mean, what I think it says, it's considerably faster than Laravel. So you have a speed gain there.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how to answer that question really, because I
Yeah, I
haven't.
mean, it looked like that last page that you were on had I guess Gate described as a
What
specific difference from Laravel than.
what I can tell you is that it does force you to think differently, because sometimes you feel tempted to do things the Laravel way.
Mhm.
You feel tempted to do a view. You feel tempted to do your authorization setup the way that Laravel does, and to use sessions. But not having those things forces you to think differently, and I think that's really good. Um, and it's really a blank slate. So it also forces you to use packages um, that are not specific to Laravel. That's all I can say. That's a good question.
Nice. So we do have another question here from. Oh, I just lost it. Here we go. Jesus Baron. Have you used any implementation with MongoDB inside of Lumen?
No, I've never used a MongoDB driver, neither in Laravel or Lumen, but I believe there is a package for that. But really, it's just an abstraction, I guess. You would use it as any other. You would interact with any other data-driven package or database-driven package. I know it's a different database. I really don't know much about Mongo, really. So.
I definitely think to that question, one of the considerations there is that with with an in-memory DB like that, Redis, using something like Mongo, you're definitely going to see some speed gains there.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of fits in with the first question. What is the point of Lumen? And I know one of the guys that I work with that dabbles with Laravel as well asked that same question. Where do you draw the line between doing a Lumen project or a Laravel project? Is it just basically, serves JSON out of the box, so it's better for single page apps? And when I was reading around on it, there's an interview by Taylor. I'll share that in Slack, and Tanner can speak to that later. But one of the things he said is when he was building Envoyer, he built a couple of microservices to support Envoyer, one of them being the post-commit health checks. So, you're using Envoyer to deploy, and then there's a service that runs, a microservice that runs, and in order for him to build that, that's where he birthed Lumen, is, how can I take these same components, these Illuminate components, and glue them together in a different way that gives us the same functionality but better speed. And completely geared towards these fast microservices. So if you're not having to do deep database management, like users, registration, ACL type stuff, you're just doing basic checks and basic data stores, like MongoDB or something like Redis is going to be uber fast.
Yeah. There's not much selling points than speed and simplicity, I guess. I guess after using it a couple of months more, maybe I'll be able to tell you more. But I've just used it for 2 months maybe, and for a very simple app, and it's worked out great. I mean, it definitely feels like you're developing with a lighter framework.
Right. Yeah, I
Makes
think it
sense.
can be super beneficial. whenever you need an API. I mean, man, you could go straight with if you're building a native application that's on mobile, or even if you're building a web application, it would be interesting to try and build like something with Angular or something where you're
Yeah.
using all of the entire application pieces are in the front end, whether it's Angular or React or whatever, and then it just talks to a Lumen backend. That would be pretty interesting, I think.
Definitely.
Well, cool.
Any other questions?
Let's see. I don't know if we've gotten any more yet. Again, laraveldfw.com/ask, or tweet at us at laraveldfw on Twitter. Um, yeah, I think it's super interesting. Um, Seth or Stuart, do you guys have any other questions? No? All
No,
right.
good. I mean, I thought
Um,
Fractal was pretty cool. I
Oh
hadn't seen it
yeah,
before.
Fractal is
It's
definitely
super easy to use.
yeah,
It's a well done package.
yeah, it seems
right.
really cool. I've been using Ruby on Rails a lot recently, and they have, like serializer objects, and it seems like a very similar concept where, at least for, the project I'm working on, we have an iOS app, and the iOS app is always wanting the data in this specific format. And so kind of having almost like an outward bound middleware to structure your data um, on the way out so that you kind of have a consistent setup, and even having a um, you could even have one like a Fractal for, I guess, like error objects and stuff, because I know our iOS app, can only consume errors in like certain object formats. So I guess like you could push all the objects through like Fractal way to structure errors and stuff like that, which would be really nice.
Yeah, definitely.
Sounds good.
Well, Oz, do you have any closing thoughts on anything?
Just that I hope that you learned something new. I hope, even though it was a bit improvised, that you enjoyed the presentation, and I guess it was fun.
Well, cool. Yeah, I think I enjoyed it. Enjoyed learning about Fractal and seeing Lumen a little bit more in depth, because I haven't built any apps with Lumen directly myself. We do use it
We
for
do.
at least one or two things at MusicBed, I think, right now.
Yeah.
Um, so it's super helpful. I think we just launched a new Lumen app like last week.
Right.
Yeah,
It's sort of
so
like a queuing service.
so it's pretty nice.
Oh, cool.
But while I guess since we're done with that, I do want to just let everybody know about one other thing. We talked about Squares earlier. Um, we also have a Slack available for Laravel DFW. So let me just throw a quick screen up here. And here we go. So if you want to join, just go to laraveldfw.com/slack, and that will take you right to the form. We need your email address for you to join, um, but that should be it, really. So just fill it out, give us your email address, it'll send it to us, and then we'll send you an invite for the Slack. Um, Oz, Seth, and I have been on it for a couple of months, actually. We've been planning to release it, just trying to get everything organized, and it's been super helpful because we can just jump on in the middle of the day and throw a question out there or whatever if we're trying to figure something out. And so just join in. It'll help you get connected with people in DFW that are using Laravel, and you can talk with us if you have questions. You can talk with other people if you have questions. And if you want to share something or teach us something, um, we'd love for that to be a really great central hub of communication. If you haven't used Slack yet, it's really great. It's a really great app. It's on your desktop and on your phone, so that makes it really easy to communicate with people on the go or if you're sitting down and programming. Um, It also does, I think, screenshots and all, like, it unfolds URLs and all sorts of crazy stuff. So, anyways, LaravelDFW.com/Slack, and fill it out. We'll send you an invite. So, without further ado, then, why don't we just like briefly talk through a couple of things that we're all working on, just to close us out. And then, if anybody has any other questions, feel free to send them in LaravelDFW.com/ask or tweet us at LaravelDFW on Twitter, and then we'll answer those as we close out. I can go first, and then we can just kind of go around the table a little bit and talk about it. We've been doing some great stuff at MusicBed. We have two apps, musicbed.com and filmsupply.com. Both of them use Laravel. Both of them use like some front-end libraries too, like Angular and React. So we're kind of dabbling in a lot of different things. I think both of them now use Lumen too. And so it's been pretty fun just to continue to see Laravel grow, and since we use it on a day-to-day basis, it's been great. So I know that all of our backend team loves it, and our front-end team loves it too, because the backend team can get them stuff quickly. So yeah, that's what we've been working on. We just released some great new stuff, and we have some really cool new features coming out too. So we're just working on music and music licensing, but you can check that out at musicbed.com, and we have an iOS app too that you can download and check out as well. Stuart, what are you up to, man?
So I am, since I graduated school, I've been working at a company called Docwa. We're based out of Cambridge, Massachusetts. I'm not in Dallas or Fort Worth, but it's essentially a iPhone app / website for boaters to request reservations for docks and moorings from marinas. So kind of like OpenTable for your boat and docks. So I do most of our like front end development there. It's built on Rails. As much as I'd like to be using Laravel on a daily basis. And
Rails is cool too, man.
It is. I recently released a JavaScript library called Pressure, which is a way for you to use the new Mac Force Touch trackpads as well as iPhone 6s 3D Touch on the web. So that's been kind of fun. It's gotten more attention than I kind of expected. So that's kind of cool. And so yeah.
Awesome. So I've been working on a secret project. Can't really go into detail, but I am using Lumen and React. Well, actually, I just started learning React and trying to get used to it. So barely. I'm just focused on the Lumen side of things, and hopefully in the next month I start developing with React. It's a nice framework, and never done ES6 standard JavaScript programming, so that's exciting too.
Mm-hmm.
And React kind of follows very much of that standard, so it's nice.
Yeah, I just started using React recently. It's very, very interesting.
Yeah. Oh man, then you and me got to talk sometime.
Yeah, I just built my first thing for Docwa out of that, so it's pretty cool though.
Awesome.
What is the URL for your app, Stuart? Is it on GitHub, or do you have a domain for it?
Yeah, it's there's a domain. It's pressurejs.com.
Nice. Do you want to show it to us?
Sure.
Share your screen, man.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can.
Myself.
Okay. So unfortunately, Apple only supports it in Safari. right now. Um, so I have like a little like browser test thing here, which you click to see if you support it or not. And I have like a GIF of it working. But essentially, like the harder you press on the trackpad, the gives you back a force value. And
Nice.
so one of the biggest things is it works on the Mac and the new iPhone 6s, and the way that those work in the browser are like completely different from each other. So there's kind of a wrapper around all of that to make it really like simple to use, and you essentially can implement it once and it'll work on both devices.
Oh, okay. So you're just like abstracting the Mac and the phone since they're so different.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And they also, with pressure, it allows you to, I guess in here in the docs, it allows you to like call like an unsupported callback type thing. So you can actually test if their browser supports it or not. So you can kind of give better user experience. So like, because obviously there's very little support right now. So if something doesn't support it, you have to have it supported another way or something like that. So kind of this getting a handle on if the user supports it or not is like, well, it's like pretty much the most complicated part of pressure, because it's like not trivial at all. It's like kind of hacky, but it works. So kind of also does things like you can so there's like force touches on the
Mm-hmm.
Mac trackpad, and on iOS I essentially simulate these. So like over essentially like 50%, it'll do a like quote unquote deep press. So this one, for example, if I'm clicking on it right now, it does nothing, but then once I hard click, it does like a popover, for example.
Nice.
So, but yeah, that's pretty much it. So it's been really interesting. It's like kind of a weird thing, because it's, I guess, like a new type of input that we haven't really had a new type of input for in a while. I guess like the last new input was like touchscreens, I guess. I don't know. Maybe there's something else. But I'm just interested to, I was really interested to do it because I'm interested to see like what people make with it, I guess. So anyways, that's
awesome.
Sure. Thanks.
Yeah, very cool. So I guess you're saying that Chrome doesn't support it, right?
Yeah, it's only Safari on Mac and on iOS. So
Right. I mean, it'd be good for mobile for sure. But
yeah. I mean, there's like a standard that's going to be in like the next release by like World Wide Web Consortium that has like force values attached to touch events, which is how it works on iOS. But I don't know if like Chrome will ever have support on Mac, because they're like custom WebKit events that Apple's throwing. I don't know. It's really kind of weird and complicated, but that's why I built pressure, I guess.
Maybe they'll make it more standardized once W3C comes out with stuff.
Yeah, that'd be cool for sure.
Nice. Well,
Thanks.
Seth, what about you, man?
Hot topic lately has been Perl 6, so I'm sure you guys are excited to hear about that.
Very.
The woes of being in a Perl shop. No, actually, I've grabbed one of our Perl developers who's worked with Angular as well. Hopefully, he's watching this broadcast, Mike Scragg, and he built some Angular front end stuff on. There's a framework in Perl called Dancer that we've been doing to move over to a service-oriented architecture in the shop that we're in. And one of the services he worked on, he built the front end for that, as well as some API endpoints, and he did that in Angular. And so he and I are currently collaborating on just kind of a sidebar project on our off time for appraisers, basically. We recruit appraisers to go out and do appraisals for banks. They place orders with us, and then we find our network of appraisers, and they'll go out and do it. One of the hard parts of recruiting is being able to easily tell the proximity of an appraiser to the subject that you want to have appraised. And so we're building an interface, that single page app in Angular, that allows them to type in a subject address, and then we pull from a national database of appraisers and plot those guys within, 5-10 mile radius. They get to pick that range, and then it drops all these markers on a Google map, and they can get the contact information and sort and filter and all that kind of stuff. So we're right now in the early planning phases, but our hopes is to introduce Laravel as a possibility into our shop. We're very heavy Perl, but now that we're more service oriented, having the technologies encapsulated around specific services that honor an API contract is a possibility now. So we got a little traction with that. I think we're looking to do the front end with Angular Material. I don't know if any of you guys have worked with that, but it's it's the Angular framework, and they basically give you all the components to have
That's cool.
Easy material design. Yeah, so that's been fun to work with. I finally got through all of Google's material documentation, and read it with some intention, and it's pretty cool stuff. So it's fun.
Nice. Well, thanks for sharing, man.
Very cool.
Well, so then let me just check the email inbox if there's any other questions. I don't see any right now, but if you do have any questions, again, feel free to hit us up on Twitter or whatnot. If you just hit up laraveldfw.com, there's also some buttons you can click and ask questions. So with that, I think
I do want to reiterate: send us your email for Slack.
Yeah.
Oz Tanner and I are in there pretty much every day. It's a great way to keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on with Laravel DFW. So definitely hit that up. We'd love to see a bunch of you jump in there.
Yeah, definitely. So we can close with that just because just go to laraveldfw.com. There's a button now to join. Or just go to laraveldfw.com/Slack. I mean, we try to make things really easy. /ask/Slack/live.
That's great.
I mean, it's like, you want to watch it. Maybe we need /watch. I don't know. But we try to make it easy. So /Slack, just go and send us your email. We'll get you looped in. Seth, maybe what we should do too is we can send an email out to everybody and just let them know. I think we have a lot of people's emails. We could just send out invites, but it might be a little weird. So I think we probably should just send an email out that has the link.
Right.
And if they're interested, then they can send us that they want to be involved. So laraveldfw.com, that's your place to be. So next month we'll be in person. Check out meetup.com or laraveldfw.com. We'll have links everywhere. You probably just need to send everybody to laraveldfw.com. That's the hub. Go there. Info will be up soon about next month. And then we'll meet back up online in April with a really cool speaker. So if you have any questions, shoot us an email. Talk@laraveldfw.com. Go to the website or join Slack and talk to us there. Also on Twitter. I mean, there's like too many places. If you speak, we'll probably know about it. You have like a little Raspberry Pi watching you or something. So just let us know. We're friendly. Learn Laravel or Lumen. We'll help you out. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next month. See you guys.
See ya.
Yeah.
Thanks.